You are listening to the Awakening Spaces podcast, a show about building homes that heal and the sacred journey within. I'm your host, Ashley Spanovich, a healthy home consultant, building science nerd, and the founder of Awakening Spaces. Around here, we're not just talking about walls, windows, and wiring. We're also exploring how the spaces we live in shape our nervous systems, our health, and our sense of self. Whether you're building from scratch, recovering from an environmental illness, or just starting to question what's really in your walls, we're here to help you reclaim your home as a place of deep nourishment. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Awakening Spaces podcast. Today is going to be a solo episode, and I actually wasn't sure what I was going to talk about today. I have been trying my best to be really consistent with getting an episode out to you every single Thursday, even when life is busy, even when life is chaotic, and I feel like I don't have the time to set aside for this. I feel like this podcast for me has really become a labor of love and something that I really want to be consistent with. And it's 6:30 p.m. I am going to be posting this. I should say it's 6:30 p.m. on May 27th. I'm posting this at 6 a.m. on May 28th for you guys. So this is super fresh if you're listening to this the day it's released. And I was trying to think about what I wanted to talk about, and I thought, I'm working on a project right now that a few things have come up that I thought this could be a really good episode. So, as you may know, if you've listened to some of the previous episodes recently, I'm actually 21 weeks pregnant today. So, and I'm also deep in the throes of a wonderful project that I'm working on as the owner's representative. And so today I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about what an owner's representative actually is. And then I wanted to talk about owner's contingency, because this has been brought up a lot on the project that I'm working on. And it was kind of a confusing concept to the client and their team. So I thought, well, let's break this down a little bit for everyone. And then I want to dive into a little more of the personal, mental, emotional wisdom, the spiritual aspect that I usually end every guest episode on, but just something personal that's happening and something I'm thinking and working through in real time in my own life that hopefully can help you as you're embarking and navigating your own construction project or just life in general. So let's just start with, what is an owner's rep? So what does an owner's rep actually do, and why does this matter for your project? Well, when we hire a general contractor to build or renovate our home, they are working for you in one sense, but their primary job is to build what is in the contract at the price that you agreed to. They are not hired to advocate for your interests when those interests come into conflict with schedule, budget, or their subcontractor relationships. And that's not a criticism to contractors. It's just the reality of how the contractor relationship is typically structured. Now, an owner's rep comes in to fill that gap. So my job when I'm acting as an owner's rep on a project is really to be in your corner for the entire duration of the project and sit between you and the contractor, the architect, the interior designer, and all of the other consultants you might have on your team. So I really help my clients to understand what they're signing, and I ask questions that they don't know how to ask. I flag when things in the plans don't line up with what they said they wanted, and I help you make decisions under pressure without panic. And on a healthy home build specifically, this really does matter even more, because making sure that everything is actually getting implemented the way that you designed it is half the battle. And most contractors out there, I should say, they're really not thinking about VOC emissions and the adhesives or the EMF implications that are happening from building wiring, or where to place the electrical panels, or where to group utilities. whether the cleaning products being used on the site are going to leave a residue that affects air quality, or how to keep the site clean and managed during construction. They're typically not factoring or doing these things. And so when you set out to bring a contractor or architectural team onto your project, you know, you as the owner are likely requesting these things, but there's sometimes a breakdown in communication and understanding. And your goals sometimes aren't always translated the way that you want them to be. And so that's where I come in as an owner's representative. The knowledge has to come from somewhere, and it has to be present during construction, not after the fact when fixing things costs 3 times as much. Typically, we would like to see all of these things that you want for your home implemented at the very, very beginning stages, in the very early conversations. So as an owner's rep, I can help you translate your goals to the contractor in a way that they understand and that makes sense to them, so that it doesn't actually increase the cost of your project. And so that they're not just throwing numbers at you, slapping things, into the budget because they're concerned, or they think that you're gonna be complicated. Because I have seen that happen too, where contractors just throw a crazy number out there because they either don't really want to do the project, or they want to do it their way. And by saying that the way that you're suggesting is going to cost more, it forces the client into doing it the way the contractor's always done it for 30 years. But having an owner's rep can really be that bridge in communication, so that the contractor can feel a little settled in some of the language we use to communicate what our goals really are. Now, an owner's rep is not a project manager in the traditional sense, but there is some overlap. We're not on site swinging hammers or supervising subcontractors the way a construction manager is. But what we are doing is protecting your design making capacity. We are making sure that when a contractor calls you on a Tuesday afternoon and says, "We need an answer on this today," that you have somebody in your life who you can look to the situation clearly and tell you what it actually means for your project. If you have ever been mid-renovation and felt like you were being rushed into a design decision that you didn't fully understand, or like you were the only person on the team who did not speak the language, that's the gap that an owner's rep can help you fill on your project. And one of the ways that I act as an owner's rep as well is really looking at the project through the lens of health. So when I'm not acting specifically as an owner's rep on a project, I am just acting as a healthy construction consultant. So I'm doing material research. I'm putting together plans to support lower electromagnetic radiation exposure in the home. I'm doing EMF assessments. So I'm actually going out and doing that work. But one of the things that's really helped me is that by understanding and doing that work myself, I now know how to find and help you find the right consultants for your team. So when I come in as an owner's rep, I can definitely do, in addition to that, the materials research and help you with EMF stuff and whatnot. But oftentimes, there's other consultants that we need to bring into the project. And what I like to think that I'm really good at is looking at a project, seeing where the gaps in the project are, and helping you find the right people to fill those gaps. And I scream this from the rooftops all the time. I truly believe that building and renovating a home is a team sport. I think oftentimes we want to just have a small team. We want to just work with our contractor and our architect and just have maybe one consultant on our team who's helping us because we think that that's going to save us money. But what I found is there's just so many moving pieces on a project, and bringing in various people who have expertise in a specific area And then having somebody who is coordinating all those different people with those various expertise can be really valuable. And it can save you a lot of money up front. Well, I should say it can save you a lot of money in the long run. It might seem like a lot of money up front, but what I have found is that the more that we actually put pen to paper in the beginning, we flush out the details, we understand our roadmap before we get started, that's going to save you money during construction. So it all ends up coming out in the wash in one way or the other. And in fact, I've actually seen people spend more money when they don't have these different, pieces in place in the early stages. They can end up, I've seen projects end up like hundreds of thousands over budget because they thought they were saving money up front. And that is really ultimately, I think many of you probably have heard my story. I talk about this all the time. My very first project as an interior designer that led me down this route and ultimately led me into becoming an owner's rep because I saw this firsthand. It broke my heart. And I realized there really is a missing piece and there's a gap in that person that really helps coordinate and put all these pieces together and really supports the owner as their representative to make sure that the goals that they have for their project are actually getting communicated and actually getting implemented. Now, the other thing that keeps coming up or has come up on this project, and I think is a really, really important financial concept to understand as we are considering our renovation or new build projects, is owner's contingency. And I want to start here because I think this is a really common financial mistake that I see in new builds, and I think it can be really confusing to people too. So people plan for the cost of the build. They do not plan for the cost of everything else that happens during the build. So let me explain what owner's contingency actually is. This is the reserve fund that the owner sets aside separately from the construction budget. It is not money that you give to the contractor, okay? It's not money that your lender holds. This is money that lives in your account and is available to you when the unexpected happens. And I want to be really clear. The unexpected always happens, okay? I think the best thing we can do for ourselves as we embark any type of renovation project, especially a renovation project, but any type of new build, any type of construction project, expect the unexpected. And I don't know if this is some foreshadowing for some of the wisdom we're going to drop at the end, but expect the unexpected, okay? The standard recommendation for owner's contingency is 5 to 10% for new construction and 15 to 20% for renovations. Now that's standard recommendation. However, I usually tell all my clients 15 to 20% no matter what. That's usually the sweet spot of where I like to land, is just to be on the safe side. So, for example, if you're building $1 million home, we're talking $50,000 to $100,000 in the reserve just sitting in the account for unforeseen things that might happen. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but it is better to plan for that up front than to get into the middle of this process and need it and not have it. Trust me. So let me walk you through what this money actually covers. And, you can tell me if it sounds like a lot. Maybe you've actually gone through a renovation or a new build yourself and you already understand this concept and you can say, yeah, and actually I would love it if you would reach out to me after this, if you've listened to this, and let me know, did you do a renovation or a new build project and did you use your contingency money? Did you not use your contingency money? Did you not have a contingency? I have no idea, that you needed one. I would just love to hear your experience on this. But the first bucket of what this money can go to is owner-initiated changes. This is when you are mid-build and you want to change the tile you selected, or you decided that you want to add a window that wasn't in the original plan because you started walking on site and you're like, holy crap, it feels super dark in this hallway. Or the flooring you ordered has a 6-month lead time and now you need to pivot. Every single one of those changes costs money beyond the original contract. So, for example, in a project that I'm working on now, the client is considering turning what was originally going to be an office into a private suite for a caregiver. And so, we're looking at a potential change because they're already, doing the demo work. They're already wiring for electrical. They're already doing plumbing right now. So now we're looking at a potential increase of 60 to 100K. We're getting some better pricing on that right now, but this is an example, right? This was something that wasn't in the original budget. It wasn't something we originally thought we would do, but the more we sat with the plan, the more we thought about what we wanted, or I should say, the more she thought about what she wanted for this space, the more it made sense to really consider this. Well, this is a lot of money that's coming out of nowhere, but it does make sense and it would really increase the value of the home long term. So, having some sort of reserve set away for something like this can be really useful. That's, a really big change. Oftentimes, owners' contingencies aren't utilized for changes that size, but that's just a good example of, having money set aside allows for things like that to happen when you're in the process. Now, there are material costs, there's labor costs to undo what was already done, and sometimes there's restocking fees or expedite charges to get something new in time. All of this comes out of the contingency. Now, the second bucket is unforeseen site conditions. This is things that are genuinely no one's fault, but happen all the time, and you really do need to plan for them. So, for instance, another example is we are thinking about putting an ADU on this project, but it's being built onto a hillside. We are planning for the fact that we may hit rock. And this happens all the time. You never know when you start digging if you're going to hit rock when you start excavation. So having owner's contingency buffered in and planned for and set aside, that would account for the large, significant amount of money it would require to pay for that rock excavation. Or you might discover that the soil requires a different foundation approach than was originally scoped. You might open a wall during a renovation and find water damage. I can't tell you how this is like every renovation project I work on. It starts as like a small bathroom remodel. And then next thing you know, we open up the wall. And next thing you know, it's like we're opening up all the walls because we realized there was water damage in the walls and, everything now needs to be ripped out. Or old wiring that we find that's totally out of code, knob and tube. We see this a lot too. Or mold that just has to be addressed before you can move forward. These are not contractor errors. These are the reality of building on an imperfect piece of land or inside of an imperfect existing structure. And they are your financial responsibility as the owner, and they suck. A lot of times, most of the times, they suck, but they're going to suck a lot less if you have money in your budget to deal with them and handle it. Now, the third bucket is professional fees and consultants. So you might not have initially budgeted for some of these consultants or professional fees. This one comes up a lot in my work. In fact, I think oftentimes I'm part of that problem because I'll get calls from people who are, midway through a new build or a renovation, and they're like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden we realized we wanted to do X, Y, and Z, or all of a sudden I realized my health issues were related to mold, and now I want to make sure I move forward with this renovation the right way, or we don't make the same mistake, or maybe they uncovered water damage and then they realize, oh my gosh, now we have to, I should say, you were in the middle of a renovation, you tore down a wall, you uncovered that there was water damage, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I need a mold inspector and a remediator, and holy crap, how am I going to build this back in a way where we prevent this from happening again? Now I want, a healthy construction consultant or a building science specialist or whatever it is. And now you are pivoting and trying to account for all of these consultant fees that you didn't know you needed. And, I think this is a really important, this happens more often than not. So having that money tucked away so that if you do have something like that happen, you don't feel limited. You feel like, okay, I've actually planned for this so that I can move through this in a way that feels right and aligned with my goals and my vision. Now, the fourth bucket is material upgrades and maybe healthy home pivots. And this is, something that I think happens again quite often is, you start the process using conventional materials because that's what the spec shows, or your builder recommended it, or your architect recommended it. And then all of a sudden, you're doing all this education and deep diving, and you're learning a whole bunch, and you're like, okay. And you're like, maybe, maybe you even find this podcast because you're like, I want to learn everything I can about building a home. And then you find this podcast and you find Facebook groups and you find Instagram accounts, or maybe you start, then working with a building biologist, or you really just start paying attention during the process, and then something shifts and you realize you want to swap out the spray foam insulation for a less toxic alternative, or you want to change the adhesive that's being used for your hardwood floors into something that's cleaner, or you want to upgrade your water filtration or your filtration on your HVAC system. All of these are pivots that are going to increase cost, but that will be accessible to you if you have some owner's contingency tucked away. And it's always going to be something. Like, even when you think you've thought through everything, there's going to be something. So set that money aside, factor that in before you even start your project. Now, there's also the category people almost never think about, which is carrying costs and soft costs that accumulate over time. So if your project runs long, and let me tell you, most of them do, you may be paying rent somewhere while also paying a construction loan. You may need temporary storage for your materials or your furniture. You may have utility bills running at a partially finished project. You might need to hire someone to do a final clean before you can move in. And these are all very real scenarios that happen all the time. And owner's contingency is what's going to make that possible to course correct in real time. Now, without it, you are locked into whatever was specified at the beginning, even if your understanding and knowledge has grown significantly since then. So please, please, please build this into your budget before you sign anything, with your contractor. I think this whole conversation really comes down to expect the unexpected. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of this happening in my own life in real time, or at least I'm working through my own internal dialogue to expect the unexpected and to really, 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 really practice detachment. So, as I mentioned, and as I'm recording this, I am pregnant with my first baby. I'm due in early October, and I'm planning a home birth, which means that I've spent a lot of time thinking about birth preferences and, you know, how I want my space to feel, about the rituals that I want in place, about what I want the first hours of my child's life to look like. And, in my mind, I just think, like, especially being someone who does this work and what I know about the environment, and also just like what I know, the little that I know about having a baby, is one of the most important things that you can do when having a child or giving birth, is really just being in a place that makes you feel safe and comfortable. Because from what I understand, like, you really need to relax your body to allow the baby to come out. It's like And anyone who's a mama out there who's gone through this, I would love to hear from you. But this is just like what I've heard the testimonials from other women who've gone through this process. It's sort of like taking a poop, okay? Like when you start to take a poop and then you realize there's like a crowd of people outside, all of a sudden you're like, I'm not going. I don't gotta go. Or you go on vacation, you're like, yeah, I'm not going for a week because like I'm just not in my safe space. I'm not in my comfort zone, whatever. And I think giving birth is a lot like that from what I understand. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, well, home birth only makes sense for me because I've spent so much time curating the perfect environment and the perfect lighting and like, making sure it's clean and it just meets all my needs. But I keep coming back to this thing where every woman I talk to who's gone through the process, who's had a baby out of like my sisterhood, my community, I think the most common thread that I've heard is that they have planned for one thing, they planned for one outcome, and they didn't get it. They were so committed to this specific outcome, whatever it might have looked like for them. Different for everybody, but there's this theme of like, I really wanted a natural birth or unmedicated birth, or I wanted to do it at home, or I didn't, I would, having a C-section was the thing that scared me the most, or whatever. And then in the end, the thing they were most afraid of happened. And it got me thinking, like, I think the only way to approach birth is to be detached, which is one of the reasons, like, I'm saying I'm attempting a home birth because I want to start that way, but I also want to be detached in a way that, like, if it ends up going a different direction, I'm not blaming myself. I'm not stressing myself out about it. I just want to relax into whatever unfolds, whatever God's plan is, whatever the universe delivers. Like, I want to just be available for that because I really do believe that we are delivered. Sometimes we are delivered the lessons that we need. We don't get what we want. We get what we need. And I think as I've been thinking about this a lot, I'm thinking, well, this is so interesting because I think we need to do the same thing when it comes to our construction projects and our renovation projects. You can do everything right. You can hire the right team. You can ask the right questions. You can specify the right materials. You can have a contingency in your budget. You can work with an owner's rep. You can work with an EMF consultant and a materials consultant, and you can have the best team ever. You can have a mechanical engineer on your project. I mean, you can do it all right. You can show up to every single site visit. You can be copied on every single email. You can do it all. And a pipe will still burst at the wrong moment. A subcontractor will still miss something. Someone will overlap the tape in the wrong way that causes a leak in your wall. A product will still arrive damaged. Your inspector will miss something. Detachment in this context doesn't mean not caring about your project. It doesn't mean being passive. It means having done the preparation work, you have set a clear intention and you trust yourself to respond to whatever actually shows up instead of needing it to match the picture perfect vision in your head. And I see this happen not only with birth outcomes, but with everything in life. And especially this process, renovating, new builds, just construction. The homeowners who move through the projects most gracefully are the ones who are committed to the process, but are flexible about the results. They have a clear North Star, something that is leading them to where they want to go, but they're not white knuckling every single decision along the way. And they're not fighting and battling every single decision along the way. They're relaxing into the process, and they are just expecting the unexpected and knowing that they have done their best. They have educated themselves. They've been a present, active member of the team, but they expect the unexpected, and they expect that something might go wrong. And they are open and able to shift and mold and move with whatever they need to do in that moment when that moment arises. And I think that is where the owner's contingency does allow a lot of flexibility so that you don't have to feel the financial stress of whatever might come up. So, wherever you are in your project or your life, I want to invite you into that same practice. Set your intentions, do your preparation, build your contingency, and then take a deep breath and trust that the project will become what it needs to become, often in ways that are better than what you had originally imagined. Now, personally, we had, and you might have been following on Instagram, we have been trying to move out of the house that we're in for 6 years. And it just hasn't worked out. It's like it's never really been the right time. And then we went on this whole, at end of last year, we went on this whole thing where we were like looking at all these houses. And I even did like a little series on Instagram where I was walking you guys through like what we were looking for. And then I got pregnant. I was like, okay. And that first trimester hit, and it was like the fatigue was absolutely unreal. I've never slept so much in my life. And in fact, it was the best sleep of my whole life. It was some of the best, as tough as it was like some of the best sleep I think I'll ever have in my life. And I actually like very, 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 very grateful for it. But that really slowed down the process. And it kind of made me pause. It made me think, okay, I'm in this new chapter now. Like, do I really want to move my whole life from one home to another right now while I'm trying to take care of myself and like have a healthy pregnancy and just relax into this? And I decided, you know what? No, we're going to pause. And ultimately, I think it was all meant to be because I never wanted to buy a home and renovate it in the first place. It's been my dream to build a small, functional, healthy home for so long. And I think, this was also sort of the pause that I needed in order to kind of come home to like what it is that I really want anyway. And I think that I also did an episode with Brownell. If you go back a couple episodes, there was an episode on wishing. And she talks a lot about this. Sometimes I think we actually use a specific example where she talks about like, the contractor and like, let's say a contractor installs your pendant light in the wrong place, but then you look at it and you're like, I actually really like that pendant light there. I actually like it there more than the original place I put it or I had it designed. And so I think it's just really cool to be open-minded to maybe I don't actually know what's best. And maybe there's something better that is yet to come. And even though it's the wrong thing, maybe if I just open my mind to it, I can realize like, wow, that was actually even better than I thought it could be. That was better than my initial design. It happened better than I could have possibly imagined. So that's my little rant for you guys today. But that's really what I've been trying to work through on my own because in the season that I'm in, which is having a baby, and I'm not, we'll hopefully next year or the year after, we'll be talking about my home build when I'm building a home. But right now, the season of life that I'm in is creating a home for this little one inside of me. And those of you listening are likely creating your home or renovating your home or building your home, or maybe you're building your home and you're pregnant right now. I don't know. I'm so much power to you. Like, hell yeah. I mean, I don't think that I'm up for that, but I come across people who are doing both and I'm just like, hell yeah, like good for you. It's amazing that you're doing all of that. You're doing so much and you should be so, so proud of yourself. But I just felt like I was moving through this. I'm continuing to move through this, but this really applies to every area of our lives. And there's something about being like the second trimester of pregnancy that really makes you go inward. And I feel like that's happening so much for me right now, where I'm going inward on so many different levels. And it's just so interesting to see how it actually applies to all areas of our lives. And again, also one of the reasons I absolutely love doing this podcast. I love diving into the realness of life because what is a healthy home? What is a home? It's all so that we can live our best lives and just be the best version of ourselves. So anyways, thank you so much for listening. I just am so, so incredibly grateful for every single person who listens to this podcast. If you have enjoyed it, it would mean so much to leave a rating and a review because this has literally been such a labor of love for me. I've loved speaking with every single guest. I get so emotional every time I record a podcast because it just feels like I'm so passionate about every single thing I'm talking about and love every single person that this podcast and that this work has connected me to, every single client, every single contractor, every single person I have connected to through Awakening Spaces has just helped me grow in so many ways. And I just love seeing this work grow and expand and the awareness spread about healthier environments and healthier lives, because in the end, we know that all of this is just going to make healthier, happier people and a better world. So, all right. Until next time, I'll see you later. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Awakening Spaces podcast. If you're ready to take what you've learned and start applying it to your own home, then there's a few ways that we can support you. On our website, you can find a collection of free and paid guides and courses that will walk you through everything from designing a healthy home to choosing safe materials and reducing mold, chemical, and EMF exposure. And if you're looking for more personalized guidance, then we also offer one-on-one consulting and design support, where we act as your owner's representative to help you plan, manage, and execute your new build or renovation project with confidence. You can explore all of these offerings on our website at awakeningspaces.com. And if this podcast has helped you in any way, we would be so incredibly grateful if you would like, subscribe, and share this podcast so that it can reach more people. Until next time, thank you so much for listening and being here and stepping into what it means to be an awakened homeowner.